What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about Lucid. I want to go over some of the current data points, break it down what really moved it and what shorts did. Before we get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So Lucid went down 6.42%, 275 the low, 296 the high. So you did have a couple things that did happen. Pretty much right out the gate, you did have institutions selling Lucid. Maybe on a technical standpoint, profit taking. Lucid had a very kick-ass day yesterday when there wasn't really any rhyme or reason, no news or anything like that to justify that. So you did have some string of selling, as you can kind of see right here. And that happened pretty much on and off throughout the day. But that's what really set the trajectory for Lucid. And then you did have roughly around noon that sell-off that hit the broader market. Lucid actually didn't do that bad during that time frame in comparison to a lot of other stocks, but what did cause that was this right here. So the 20-year bond auction, there wasn't that much demand, so they did actually have to increase the discount rate, and it came in at 5.1. So ultimately, not good. And I think in reality, the writing's on the wall. China, Japan were huge buyers of American debt, and because of the whole trade type of fiasco, and even though we got they both had a reduction for that 90 days, still it's not fully rectified. So I think China really did put a substantial pause because, yeah, it was very clear that there was no demand. And ultimately, whenever you have to increase the discount rate, that does lower the present value of future earnings. So this is where it did really impact a lot of stocks. And then at the same time, having these kind of yields, that does also increase borrowing costs. And so it's just a domino effect affecting growth stocks, equities. But like I said, I think Lucid did do fairly well. Of course, it did get dragged down, but it did do fairly well in comparison to a lot of other stocks during that time frame. But today there was no official news from Lucid, no SEC filings or anything along those lines. A couple of things did come out that I wanted to share with you. Latest Lucid flyover, very good stuff. You see a lot of gravities, so Lucid is really ramping up. I don't know, I don't want to prematurely say that this is enough for the market to be satisfied over, but at least it is improving. That's kind of the, I guess, better takeaway from everything. So again, that's something to kind of keep in mind. Aside from that, though, the only thing I wanted to bring up was this. And so Nick, who is the communications, head of communications for Lucid Motors, he did say that he can't wait to make the Waffle House whistle stop tour in a Lucid Gravity with this exciting deployment of 400 kilowatt charging stations. So even though this news doesn't involve Lucid, it is between the BP Pulse and Waffle House, still is relatively good if you ask me. This is a pretty crappy website on a side note, but nonetheless, maybe this is something that might be coming. BP Pulse has made a lot of big partnerships with a lot of big EV players. BYD is one of them. So maybe this is something with Lucid, because right now Lucid does only have a partnership with Electrify America. And I did do a video, I think it was a month ago, how there might be some correlation as well with ChargePoint. So maybe this is what Lucid's plan is as far as a partnership, but I don't know if the market would really like this all that much. I don't know. We'll have to kind of wait and see. Do you think that this is specific to Lucid as far as a future partnership, or do you think that this is truly Nick just saying that he can't wait to pretty much charge his Gravity at a Waffle House? What's your general thoughts on that in the comments below? Moving over to shorts, they did return 2.5 million shares. So yes, I'm sure some of you might be wondering, how does that work? How does obviously shorts returning 2.5 million shares not cause the stock price to go up? Well, you did have a couple things. You had algorithmic trading really suppressing the broader market because of that 20-year kind of news, that 20-year bond. And then you also did have institutions selling. So a lot of that kind of countered, and obviously algorithmic trading is pretty much the strongest force out there, in my opinion. So them returning, they kind of took advantage of the sell-off, but by them returning, it does kind of signal that it wasn't justified in my opinion, of course. But 28.66% of the free floats being shorted works out to be 353.49 million shares overall are being shorted. Cost to borrow average 1.77%, and then you do have the short score is 75.3. So pretty high stuff. Moving over to the options, 1.96 million in calls, 3.4 in puts. 64% of all the options being done were bearish in nature, and I'm sure you guys can see this nice candle right here. So there was 2.5 million done between 205 and 210. So if we kind of pop this open, orient it based on premiums, you see looks like a multi-leg transaction, but more oriented towards being bearish. There was 1.95 million in premiums towards, it looks like a $1.50 put was purchased for January 15th, 2027. So definitely big money is betting that Lucid is going to go down, which is rather odd. And then you did, like I said, have a multi-leg transaction. So second leg was $600,000 in premiums. This one was seen as bullish, and it was a $1.50 put that was sold. So again, they're hedging both ways, but it's more oriented towards downside. So big money is kind of seeing more downside, unfortunately. And this is also something I did actually post on my Patreon yesterday, not specific to Lucid, but I did analyze overall the options activity from yesterday. And I always go over a lot of the big transactions, what that does mean. And so ultimately it looked as though, based on that options, that big money was kind of bracing for a pullback. So this is why I like to look at a lot of the data behind the scenes. But yeah, maybe this is something forecasting or something else. So big money definitely is seeing more downside with Lucid for at least based on this. But based on the bulls, you do see a consensus for it to be roughly around that 3 to 350. Bears for it to be sub roughly 250 to /3. So definitely a little bit more upside, but somewhat evenly divided at this stage. Right now, with it closing at 277, it is right below this R2. So trading currently between this R2 and this R1. So 264 is going to be a key support you really want to watch for in the next couple of trading days. And then 278 will be a key pivot for obviously Lucid. One thing to take note of though is tomorrow we do have a lot of big data that could move the market. So again, just watch for a lot of those support and resistance points. So you do have the initial jobless claims, you have composite PMI flash. Right now it is forecasted to be 50.4, so 50 is a very big pivot for that. So yeah, it should be a fun time. Aside from that, no new analyst ratings or anything like that. Based on the Elliott wave technicals, 245 is a key pivot for that. So as long as it is above that, then it is still anticipated to kind of hit between that 340 to 361. So do you think that's still realistic or not? Like, what's your general thoughts on that? But aside from that, no real even articles coming out or anything. So it's just pretty much piggybacking off the broader market for today. But aside from that though, today it did get dragged back down into kind of between that 200 and also 100-day moving average, which is where it was for a while, with the exception of yesterday that just broke right through. So just watch for that 279. That's going to be a key one to really watch for if you're going to see a nice breakout. So I think all in all, any stock going up like 10%, you're going to have a certain level of profit taking. So that's what really set the trajectory for Lucid. And then aside from that, then you just had broader market concerns drag it down the rest. So let me know your thoughts. Did you buy the Lucid dip today? Did you sell? What's your general thoughts on all of that? And do you think that based on at least the last couple flyovers that they're making significant progress or enough progress with the Gravity that the market is going to be satisfied with that? Or do you think that there's still going to be some negativity associated to that? Let me know your viewpoint. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon and give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point. So definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.